For me, I live very much in the now, always have. I reflect on the past and I know there's a future, but everything is just about what's happening right now.
That's Nikie Forster, and our biggest takeaway is all about being happy right now and not worrying about the past or the future. It was fascinating chatting to Nikie as she talked about this whole happiness adventure and journey, and she really does break it down what it means to her. Please, as always, do subscribe to our channel, the podcast. Let us know, give us a review, feedback, get involved in the comments, all those other fantastic things. Sit down even, sit tight, and let's go. Right, Nikie, welcome along to the #1 podcast called The Digital Circus Life, the Small Business Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. And we have to start at the beginning. And the beginning is, what are you trying to achieve right now in your life, business, wherever? What are you trying to achieve?
Oh, good question. Well, first of all, thanks for having me along. It's lovely to chat to you both. So what am I trying to achieve? Well, I'm going to give you the same answer that I gave my sister when I was a teenager, and she told me it was a ridiculous answer, but I still stand by it even now, all these years later. What am I trying to achieve is happiness. And that changes. It changes depending on what's going on, what I'm doing, other things around me. So I think that's always kind of the end goal, because then that gives you something different to work towards. And I like different things. I love variety and changing stuff about. So yeah, it sounds like a bit of a strange answer, but I still stand by it. It's happiness.
I don't think it's strange at all. We're on board with everything, whether they're saying global domination, happiness. We're and I think that's the point for us. It has to be, life and business on your terms where possible. And I think the key bit you were saying then, though, with the happiness is, it does change. Yeah. It does evolve. It does change. You might want something slightly different now to when you were young with your sister, but fundamentally the principle's still the same, isn't it? To wake up to be happy.
Indeed.
And would you say you're achieving that goal right now?
Oh, good one. I didn't even think about that. That's a great question.
Yes. I would say right now that is definitely something that I'm achieving. And long may it do so.
Good.
Right, so you are crazily smiley and happy and jovial today, which is fantastic because it makes our lives a lot easier. And I think it's great that you're achieving it. That sounds really, I'm teeing this up for some badness. I'm not, but have you always been it? Has there, when you were saying it with your sister back then, did you see it as a destination or were you seeing it as a journey?
It's always a journey. It's always a journey, because once you finish a destination, where else do you go? So I think everything always leads to something else. I think that for me, and I say it's always a journey, again, I'm going to come back to my sister. Bless her, I'm going to have to play this to her. She's getting lots of mentions in it. But we're quite opposite. Or certainly were when we were younger, in as much as she always knew what she wanted to do. And so hers was always a destination. She wanted to be a dance teacher, and she now runs and owns a successful dance company over in Canada. For me, it was always, I don't know what I want to do. I just want to be happy. So every job that I've had has always just had that underlying element to it. Does this make me happy? Okay, I'll do something similar to it. Let's carry on. So have I ever not been happy? Well, I think the points where you become unhappy is when you change stuff.
Yeah.
I get, do I get frustrated? I don't know. I probably do. I get frustrated with people who say that they're not happy and then, say, well, what can you change about that? And then they don't do anything about it and they don't change. And I think, well, why wouldn't you? Why would you not want to be happy?
That's so true, and it's one of those lessons that people don't always understand. It's your own destiny, and you are the master of that. So if you're not willing to take those changes, then you're going to sit and be miserable. No one can change that for you. You have to be the one to do it.
I feel I need to slide a slight caveat in before my next statement. But there may be some people who may find making that change a bit more difficult than others for situations and circumstance. But I'm with you. Like Emily and I, we're big on. We talk about this all the time. You know, we want to work with others to help them achieve what they're trying to achieve and whatever else.
Blah 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 blah
blah blah blah blah blah. Yeah. But they've got to want it. They've got to have started it themselves. You know, and they've got to be on that process, because you know that like you, if they're moaning and not willing to make a difference or make a change.
You're gonna sing Michael Jackson, aren't you?
I'm talking about the man in. Will we get a copyright strike for that? Sorry, Mr. YouTube, but yeah, you know, you've got to make that change. You know, perhaps MJ knew what he was talking about.
Let's not go into the MJ. That's a whole different conversation for a different episode. Yeah. So Nikie, what you do in your business now, and I think you've already said it in that it doesn't really matter what you've done in the past. That element of what you do in your business and helping other people, where has that come from in terms of filling your cup and making you happy, but obviously the people you're impacting too? What has got you to what you're doing right this second?
So I think that when we talked about that journey and destination, that's part of what helps me do what I do now. Yeah. So my journey, when you look at it on paper, you know, if I put everything down on my CV that I've done since I was a teenager, you think, well, where's the correlation between all of this stuff? So I know Alan and I have, you know, got a little.
I love this so much. I've been sat here trying to work out how to get this into the chat. I absolutely love what you're about to say.
Yeah. So when I was a lot younger, I wanted to be a Radio 1 DJ, specifically a Radio 1 DJ. Yeah. And it was just, I just loved the idea of being able to do that, to be able to talk and interact with people and just play music, because I love music. And I did do radio for a while on a voluntary basis. I did hospital radio, then I did local radio. But I actually soon realised that radio isn't quite as free as I would like it to be. You know, if you're not on Radio 1, then it's not. At least if you're on commercial radio, you have to play things at a certain time. You can't say certain things, and you have to promote certain things. And I don't do well with rules, so I kind of realised that maybe that wasn't for me, because you know you don't go in straight into Radio 1 and do things the way you want to. You have to get to it. But I realised that from doing that, what I really enjoyed was interviewing people and talking and working out the right questions to ask in order to engage with them. And then that kind of helped me with some of the other job roles that I had. So again, no link between that and some of the other ones, which were I was an interior designer for a while. And again, you think, well, how does that link? But again, it's talking to people and finding out about them and what works for them and how can I help them. And then I worked for B&Q for quite a long time, actually. But while I was on the
everyone works for B&Q.
Well, definitely retail, that's for certain. Everyone has a bit of retail in their back catalogue.
Yeah, but in the 90s, there was a big craze to do with painting your walls in weird and wonderful colours and lots of paint effects and crackle glazing anything made out of wood. And we had all these products come in. And my manager at the time actually said, Nick, you can talk. Why don't you go and demonstrate this stuff? Because nobody knew how to use it. It was all on, what was that TV programme called? Changing Rooms. Or
Changing Rooms.
Yeah.
Llewellyn Bowen.
Indeed. So I got sent off to the corners to test all this stuff out. And I started to do the demonstrations because, again, talking to people, helping them out, showing how to do it. So you can see the link through all of this. And out of that, I decided, again, don't do well with rules, I decided that maybe we should set up customer workshops. So we had a cafe that closed at 6. So I said, let me have it between 6 and 8 when we actually closed. And I'll get customers to come along. And we did 10-week workshops on interior design and how to paint effect. And I didn't know I was training. That wasn't even in my world of, you know, knowing that was a job you could do. It was just something I enjoyed. But it was through that I got properly involved in training. And training is all about talking to people, finding out what they need, making sure they've got it and making them, the best that they can be. So it all has a link. It just doesn't sound like it does with the job titles.
No, I think it does. And we see this as we chat to people and we're delving into, the bits forgotten wherever.
We love a bit of a portfolio career.
We do love a portfolio. I don't think I have one, but really I did. But the bit that I always find interesting is the bit that links all of those jobs together and where it came from. So, were you just like that? Did something happen? Were you just this slightly more gregarious, chatty, fun character? And that's where the Radio 1 came from. You think, and a bit like me, sometimes I go, if I can talk for a living, that's not really working, Yeah, you're nodding away. Yes.
I think part of it is just personality. I mean, my mum. Sorry, I'm hesitating because my family seems to be getting lots of drop-ins today. My mum always used to say, I was never backwards at coming forwards.
That's a skill.
And yeah. Well, it's just I think I'm an extroverted thinker, and I think that when that's part of your personality, you do just talk more. Because you're processing externally, and therefore you're perceived certainly as being kind of more confident or more outgoing or whatever it is. Not necessarily so, but that's the perception, because you're, it's everything that's in here is out here. Yeah. So yes. I can't remember what your question was, Alan. But
has it always been there? Was it a decision? Was it a conscious choice and everything else?
Yeah, no, it's always just been there. I think what I have done is I've been able to just take whatever I'm doing at that point and go, how can I make this work for me? And if it doesn't quite work, then change it. And I that's another thing that I've particularly learned. Like I said, when I was at B&Q and I just decided that we would have these customer workshops, that's something that I think I've always just done naturally. Is if it doesn't exist, it doesn't mean to say it doesn't have to. You can make it. You can make it what you want it to be. People can be quite afraid to challenge when something's just and I find that with the managers that I work with particularly, is like, well, why don't you ask, and why don't you just explain that you could do it in a certain, well, we don't do it that way. Yeah, we haven't done that way in the past, but it could be done in the future. Yeah.
Whoa, pipe down. What, you're suggesting we do something differently? To get out of it. We didn't employ you to train us to suggest we do something differently.
So tell us, what was the transition to Curious Lighthouse? How did you get to that point there? What was the job before that? Was it B&Q or was there anything in between?
I've done, so B&Q was quite a long job, but a lot of that was in a training role, and got made redundant from that when they decided to merge HR with L&D. Never works. And I'm not HR, that's not my field of expertise at all, so I was fine to step away from that, although I did actually love working there at that particular point in time. And I had several jobs following on from there as learning development manager, and working with people particularly around management development was probably the main thing, but team development and train the trainer, that kind of thing. And when my son was about 3 or 4, I got made redundant again.
Oh, fun times.
Yeah. L&D is always the first to go, particularly if you're the only person in the company doing it. It's like, oh, we can just stick it online. And so when I got made redundant, this was 8 years ago now, I said to my husband at the time, I said, I'd really quite like just to try doing it on my own, because that, again, coming back to this happiness thing, my son's about to start infant school, and I'd really like to be there, to do some of the drop-offs and the pickups and the go to the parents' evenings, and I can't do that from my corporate world. And now I've got an opportunity perhaps to try and see if I can make it work on my terms. And so I left there and set up Curious Lighthouse, and it was very interesting. The first year wasn't what I expected it to be at all, but now it's in a place where I'm going, I'm really happy with where it's at.
I'm curious.
I've got loads of questions.
Mine's
go on.
What's behind the name? How did you choose the name?
So it wasn't going to be Curious Lighthouse originally. It was going to be Blue Windmill.
Ooh.
Because I like blue and I like windmills. And then I kind of thought about it a bit more. And I do actually like lighthouses. And I think that's kind of like a subliminal message, because I realised afterwards how many lighthouse things I have around the house. But when I think about it, so the way that I always describe it is when you think of what a lighthouse does. So it tends to sit in a position where it can shine a light out into the ocean, and if there are vessels out there and there are challenges, rocks and things like that, the lighthouse is a safe haven. It can show you where those challenges are, but also it does go 360, so it goes inland as well. And I think that the curious part is that I think that's ultimately what we need to be in order to survive and to strive. And if you take a lighthouse and you put it anywhere, not on just a coastline, but you think about that 360 and you think about shining the light on it, that's what I think I do with people. Sometimes it's already there, but sometimes they don't know what they don't know. They don't know those rocks are over in the corner that they need to steer around. So my skills are just helping them understand that and helping a way to navigate safely.
Oh, I love
That's so
it.
much better than yellow
it.
tuxedo. Well, I just like the colour yellow, and I wore a yellow suit to my wedding.
Yeah, but I've got a long story to back it up. You know what they say: if you can deliver it with confidence, it doesn't really matter. So I'm sitting here thinking Curious Lighthouse is just a beacon of fabulousness.
Wow, it is.
Oh, I like that. I might have to use that as a strap line.
Oh, you can have that. You can have
Take
that. So I got a question. You were talking about your first year in business, and it wasn't quite what you thought. So, and I wonder, for people who may listen to this who's not in business and thinking about it, your first paid thing, right? So you started a business, if you can remember, or a memorable one, and you're like, great, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to do freelance L&D, whatever you're actual choosing to do. But then something happens and someone goes, well, I'm going to give you some money to do this, and you're like, yeah, okay, yes, please, yes, I can do that. My business can support your need. Can you remember something from or was it exactly what you wanted it to be?
I would say for the first 3 or 4 years, my work predominantly came from people who I already knew, who I'd worked with previously, who know my training style and knew my ability, and they'd moved on from the businesses where we worked together. So they were now in an environment, they would go, right, I need some training, I need to do this, that and the other. Oh, I know Nikie, I know she's good at what she does, I know her style would fit, let's get in contact with her. And so in terms of, was it what I expected? Yes, because they knew that about me already. They knew that management development in particular was the thing that they knew me for. So I would say mostly that's where it came from. And I was doing stuff that I was already confident in doing. But that like I said, that first year, it took a while to actually get that paid work coming in. I didn't have any for at least the first 6 months. And that was, I remember thinking, I got to generate some money here, and coming up with all these different concepts and ideas without really thinking it through. It was just kind of like a scattergun approach. I also remember thinking how important my website was going to be, and as soon as I hit publish, I was fully expecting my phone to ring within a week.
As we all do, right?
Well, hold on. The only problem is we do have a story, right? So in our previous business, now this is not the usual, right? In our previous business, we launched a new website and we pressed go, and we went, what's going, what's going to happen now? We got a new web. Oh, it must be better on Google, etc., etc. And our first inquiry, this is true, was Mark Owen from Take That. So we launched the website on a Sunday morning. We're driving around with the kids on Sunday morning, and 10 a.m., something like that. An inquiry came via the website, and it said Mark, right? Turned out genuinely to be Mark Owen from Take That.
I mean, we had no business after that for 6 months.
Oh, but we were like, what? The website's that good? It's only bringing in celebs now? But no.
But I think that is a real learning, though. And actually, you getting a paid gig within 6 months of starting is actually quite quick for your particular industry as well. And there's that block for so many people who expect that overnight success. And we've had this theme around a few of these episodes now of
Joe Wicks.
And I was laughing. I was talking to my friend Chris last night about the podcast. He's like, I've listened to everyone and I know the Joe Wicks story, and I'm going to say it again. It's that his overnight success does not take into consideration the 10 years he spent outside gyms with a sandwich board doing that and really grafting to get to that success point. And it's that gregariousness, it's that passion that in your fire and your ability to go, I'm going to keep going even though it's not quite right now, and I will try a plethora of things right now to see what's going to stick, and something will. Now the thing that I'm fascinated with your business the most, and we haven't talked about it yet, is how...
Hold on, can I just say something about that first 6 months thing very quickly?
Go before I get on my train of thread.
Right, so really quickly, we Emily and I talk about a couple of things. One, if you can run a business, you can run an ultra marathon, and that's basically because of that 6 months of effort of getting up every morning. Who's someone else we always talk about is a lady called Felicity Aston, who went to the South Pole by herself, and her book was basically about, as long as I can get out of the tent, I will get there. And I think that first 6 months is, as long as I get up and I do one thing, keep moving, we do it. Sorry, Emily, go.
No, I want to know and I could probably see why you started it, and going back to your happiness, what makes you smile, how the business evolved into Lego Play.
Oh yeah, that's a great question.
Because surely that is like the best job known to man. You're paying yourself to
talking and playing now.
To talk to people because you're fascinated by people, and to play with Lego. I mean, that's the best job ever, right?
It is. You're absolutely right. So the Lego side of things comes about because as I've mentioned before, I like variety. I like trying out new things, and when I was in corporate world doing training, I was known even then for doing things slightly differently. So it was never just, PowerPoints and Post-it notes. I like to have props and things like that. And I've got lots of Lego in our house. It's all over the place. And I thought, wouldn't it be fun as an introductory exercise to get people to build their own minifigure? They could choose the legs and the arms and, all the accessories and things, and then they could introduce themselves. And it worked so well as an introductory exercise. I was buzzing about this, and I thought I'd invented this using Lego in learning. I was all over LinkedIn with it, talking about it, and that sounds like Lego Serious Play. And I was like, what's Lego Serious Play? So I went and realised that that's been done quite a lot already. And there's a whole host of people out there, but so I think that there's kind of two sides. I don't want to get too geeky about the differences between them, but Lego Serious Play is a whole methodology on its own that has a very set way of doing things, and you host a whole event, and you can drill down quite a lot into what's going on here and how would that work and what are the connections, and it all just uses Lego. So that's one way of using it. The other way of using it, which is probably the way that I use it more frequently, is as discussion starters. Yeah. So I have another little activity where I give people the same 6 bricks and ask them to build a duck. And of course they all build random ducks. And then, you pose the question, how do you know it's the right duck? And some of those, it's fascinating. It's all just psychology and people. And then some of them have a look at other people's and they decide that, that one must be the right duck, so we'll make that. Or that's the one that's printed in your workbook, so we'll make that. Until you get to the point, and you just keep repeating that. Well, how do you know it's the right duck? And the whole point is the person who's asked you to build the duck knows if it's the right duck, but maybe they weren't clear enough. So what's the criteria for the duck? And is the criteria still okay if everything is still slightly different, or does it have to be specific? So I use it in that way to start a discussion. That one links into setting expectations and clarity and communication and things like that. But the fact that you're using your hands with your brain makes it different to, just like I said, seeing something on a PowerPoint or turn to your partner and discuss this type of thing. It makes it stick better.
It does. And you know what? Because for anyone who's listening who doesn't realize this, there is an entire world based around using Lego for training people, right? And it's fascinating because we know a few of you on LinkedIn who do it and kind of talk about it a lot. But I think I think that it's really quite cool. Once again, I can never think of the right word. But that play side can still come in. That fun element can come in to what is perceived as serious and professional, you know. And it's really important to understand that it can be fun still, you know, it's okay, and tactile and engaging and all these other things.
And it should be. Training shouldn't be serious. There is research. Oh, I can feel myself getting louder and more kind of ranty, so I might need to hold myself back.
Get around.
There is proper research, scientific research, that shows that when the brain is connecting with something that's different, that's fun, that's engaging, it retains information at that point much better. It gives you the dopamine hit, which, we're getting technical here, the dopamine releases at the point that the hippocampus is actually learning something, and it all gels together. So, you know, me saying, you know, build a duck, you know, how do you know it's the right duck? It's got nothing to do with the Lego as such, but it's the fact that, well, I'm building a duck. I'm a senior manager and I'm building Lego into a duck. What's all this about? No, that duck represents how clear you are when you're asking people to do things. And so it makes that link.
And I suppose on a selfish point for you as well, that's what keeps it fresh and new for you for every second. You can do training till the cows come home, right, and do the same training course week in, week out and that can become quite repetitive. But actually what you're doing there by introducing that Lego play into that is that you're encouraging the conversation, and each of those conversations will always be different. And surely that's got to be a tick for you on that as well.
Do you ever have to persuade delegates on your kind of sessions that this is the right thing to do? I don't know what, you know, is it, does anyone go, oh no, this is beneath me, or words to that effect?
Generally speaking, no. It depends what kind of session you're doing. So in terms of using it as a discussion starter and it's a small part of the session, I have never had anybody turn around and say, this is a load of rhubarb, you know, why are we doing this? And I actually think even if they did say that, it would still tell me enough about that person to help me to train them. I did have an incident, I'm going slightly off tangent, but it does relate to what we're talking about. I had an incident once where I was training a team of military personnel. They were actually doing a HR qualification, and I came in to do the L&D part as the last week. And I did my construct yourself a minifigure. And because I wanted to find out, you know, more about them, and one guy had boxing gloves as the accessory, and he's like, I don't hold any punches, you know, so that's me thinking, right, okay, he's going to be direct, straightforward, I know how to deal with that. You know, somebody else had cats and, you know, pink witches hats and things like that, and she was like, I just like lots of different things. So again, I understand now that she's probably going to want variety, and I might have to bring her back in for the conversation. But there was one guy who literally got a very plain pair of legs, a torso and a head that was, you know, not like one of those big smiley Lego heads. It was just quite a deadpan in it. And when it came to talking about, you know, the Lego figure and what it represents, he just held it up and goes, that's me.
Oh,
that was it. And I thought, that's really interesting, because he doesn't want to give me anything here. So at the first break, I went over and had a chat with him, and I was saying, you know, I just want to touch base. I probably didn't use that word.
So
You're such a corporate, Nikie, honestly.
I probably just said, yeah.
Why don't you ping me an email as well? You know?
Only if it's blue sky thinking, Alan.
Yeah, that's true.
I had a chat with him, and I said, look, I just want to make sure that everything's okay. I appreciate that when we did this, it may not have been what you were expecting, because I did think at that point, well, maybe it's about the fact we're playing with Lego here that isn't the right thing. But actually, he'd been quiet from that point up until the break. And he said the first 3 weeks of the course, the HR stuff, it's all been very top heavy, all PowerPoints, all workbooks. And I've just been able to sit in the corner and not interact, and said, and I've been really fine with that. And now you're asking me to, you know, kind of stand up and do this and play with Lego and be interactive. And I said, I'm really struggling. And I was like, oh, okay. And I said, well, you know, you don't have to do any of this stuff. It's all okay. And later up, he opened up that he had PTSD. Okay. And that was the whole reason he was coming out of the army. But just that one exercise at the beginning where he didn't say anything allowed me to have that conversation in the break that then gave, I didn't need to give him permission not to join in with stuff, but it allowed him to hear that, I'm going to be asking people to do this stuff, but it's all voluntary, and what you need from me, just let me know and we'll deal with it.
That's real testament to you though, Nikie, and what I would see there as your super skill there is that you're really able to read people, and whether you're seeing that just for face value or you're actually using the tools that you have in your business there to be able to get into that past that first layer. That's not everyone has that, and that's something that I would love to know more, and being able to understand what's behind the eyes of that person. And sometimes in group situations that is so hard, because you are dealing with not just one person, you're dealing with 10, 20, 30 people in a room, and to try and get that balance right. So well done.
Well, thank you very much.
Give yourself a pat on the back. No, I think it's interesting, and I think that also testament to that style of learning, because if you had gone down the more traditional PowerPoint route, when you went, now stand up and introduce yourself in 3 words or whatever, you might not have got anything. You might have just gone, he seems a bit more subdued, and carried on. But actually there was an opportunity to kind of, I don't know, whatever, opportunity to take it in a different direction, which is always good, isn't it?
Do you think this will be your last career?
Well, it's not a career, it's a vocation.
Yeah.
So therefore, yes. It's what I've done since, well, without knowing it, since I was a teenager, because of that, loose thread between all of them. It will change as I go throughout. So it may change from being stand-up to delivery to being something else. I mean, I've done a lot of online courses over the last few years as well. So it will always be something that links me to talking to people, helping them understand themselves better. Go on, Alan.
No, so I got a question, because we know you do the online stuff as well. So let's say, because you clearly feed off the people and the talking element, so let's say the online part grows large enough to be a nice semi-passive income,
you said passive income.
Well, I like to use the odd businessy buzzword in amongst what I don't think there is another way of saying semi-passive, though, is there? Residual? Is that
anyway,
whatever.
Get to the point.
What do you then do day to day? Do you then go back to radio? Do you carry on with the in-person stuff but have less pressure on yourself? How do you fill your happiness people cup if you'd got to a fantastic place of, generating that income from the online world? You may already do, by the way.
So I think I'm in a very lucky position that my business isn't solely driven by money. So if the online stuff is doing well, which it is at the moment, and I don't have to do much with it, to be honest. Thank you very much. It just kind of does its thing, and that's really nice. But there is some interaction there. But I think there will always be other things that I'll be looking at. So I'm actually just in the process of. So somebody approached me from the US who deals in training resources. And they'd seen my stuff about Lego, and they'd quite like to collaborate and maybe come up with something that we could sell over here. So that's really interesting. I'm up for that, because again, it's not necessarily talking, but again, it's sharing. It's sharing. This could be useful to other trainers, and let's have a think about how we can do it. And using different software. I do just love learning myself.
Yeah.
So it's always, if something crops up where I can learn something, then I'm up for it.
Amazing.
I love it. Shall we?
Yeah.
Right. In that case, Nikie, thank you so much. We're going to finish with the last question. And the last question always is, and if you could go back to your younger self and, put an arm around them, have a little chat, whisper a few words of wisdom in their ears, or your ears, what would you say or do?
Sorry, for the podcast, me thinking quietly is not going to work. But
funny enough, in that nanosecond, I was like, do I edit this silence out or leave it in?
Pensive.
Yeah, it's not often that I get stumped for work, because like I said, if it's in my head, it's out my mouth, and there's nothing in my head, because I think for me, I live very much in the now, always have. I reflect on the past, and I know there's a future, but everything is just about what's happening right now. So I think if that was to be the case for me, it would be just go with the flow.
Which I think you've done.
Yeah.
With
So,
with
yay
like
me.
bells and whistles and
Do you know what? Though?
I think it's fantastic.
It's a learning for so many of us listening right now, and so we get so caught up in the minutiae of it all, and actually is to just to feel what it feels right for you, and to not care. You do care, but not worry about how it fits and what that should look like in black and white. And actually, that whole we were saying embrace the grey, which you've done so well, because it's feeling that achievement thing of, is it making me happy, yes or not? And if you can live by that, then actually that's one very happy lifestyle to be leaving, isn't it?
I feel, as we dropped Man in the Mirror by MJ, I feel now's the time for you can go your own way.
Oh,
It's
don't do Fleetwood Mac.
Absolutely. It's like, right, on that bombshell, shall we?
Let's finish. Nikie, thank you so very much for giving us your time today. To everyone listening on the podcast, we will see you next time on the Digital Circus
Thanks,
Live.
Nikie. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.